The moment I stepped off the plane, I felt a knot in my stomach tighten. My mom wasn't there. Not a single car in the arrivals lane. Not a text. Not a call. 10 years. 10 years of late nights, skipped vacations, and endless sacrifices to clear her $2 million debt. And this was the thank you? A cold, empty airport. My blood was boiling as I dragged my suitcase across the tarmac. I tried calling her. Nothing. Not even a voicemail. I could feel the judgmental stares of strangers around me. But all I could hear was the echo of every Christmas, every birthday, every loan I paid off for her while she acted like I was invisible. I could almost hear her voice in my head. You'll understand when you're older? Yeah, I understood now. I understood betrayal. And I understood that this wasn't just neglect. This was a pattern. A lifetime of treating me as if I was disposable. I took a deep breath, forcing my trembling hands to stay steady. But beneath the surface, a plan was forming. A slow, methodical, perfect revenge plan. She thought she could ignore me, treat me like I was just another obligation. But she had underestimated my patience and my resolve. As I sat in the airport cafe, replaying the past decade in my mind, I realized something. Every late payment I made for her, every time I bailed her out, it had prepared me for this moment. Not just to survive her betrayal, but to turn it around on her in the most satisfying way possible. I had options: legal, financial, emotional. But one thing was clear. Nothing would feel sweeter than seeing her face when she realized that I had the upper hand now. And I wasn't going to make it obvious. Oh no. This would be silent, slow, and devastatingly effective. Can you imagine being on the other side of this? 10 years of being treated like you don't matter. And then, the tables turn. That's exactly where I was headed. But I had to wait for the perfect moment. Timing was everything. And timing, I had perfected it. I sipped my coffee, keeping my expression neutral, my mind racing. Little did she know, the person she ignored today was the same person who had the power to ruin her comfortable life, all while looking innocent, sweet, and untouchable. But first, I had to get her attention, and I had to make her feel the shock of a lifetime. I glanced at the departure board, pretending to text someone. The plan had begun, and the first domino was about to fall. I waited outside the airport for what felt like hours, though it was barely 20 minutes. Every time someone walked past, I thought, maybe it's her. But it never was. My mom had left me stranded, alone in a place where thousands of strangers were reunited with their loved ones. And me, I was invisible. As I finally grabbed a cab, my thoughts weren't on the cold seat or the hum of the city traffic. They were on everything she had cost me. The nights I spent budgeting to pay off her reckless spending. The arguments with banks and creditors, juggling her mistakes like they were mine. 10 years, a decade. And she couldn't even be bothered to show up. I replayed the last conversation we had before I left for my first college internship. She had smiled that fake, rehearsed smile and said, "Don't worry, you'll help me someday." I had laughed it off. Back then, I was naive. I thought she meant emotionally. I thought she meant support. I had no idea she meant financial slavery. By the time I got home, my head was buzzing with ideas. I had saved every document, every proof of payment, every late fee I had cleared for her. I had kept meticulous records. Not because I planned to show off, but because deep down, I knew this moment of reckoning would come. And now it was here. I set my bags down and sat at the kitchen table, letting my fingers trace the edge of the envelope I had packed months ago. It contained something that would change everything. Proof that I had cleared her debts, bank statements showing every painstaking payment, emails where she admitted she couldn't have done it without me. And hidden within it, a strategy that would make her finally realize the scale of her neglect. But I couldn't just hand it over. No, this had to hurt her pride first, slowly. I wanted her to squirm, to finally feel the weight of her choices. My plan required patience, timing, and perfect execution. If I rushed, it would lose its power. And power, oh, I had it now. Every sacrifice I had made had built up into a weapon of ultimate satisfaction. As evening fell, I imagined the scene. Her eyes widening, her mouth slightly open, realization dawning like a cold slap across her face. Could she even comprehend what I had endured? Could she feel even a fraction of the humiliation, the frustration, the betrayal? My lips curled into a quiet, almost imperceptible smile. That moment, that precise second when karma hit, would be worth every tear, every sleepless night. Then I paused. I had one more element to prepare before making my move, a subtle twist she would never anticipate. The kind of twist that didn't just shock her. It ensured she would never forget this lesson. It would be dramatic, yes, but smart, calculated, ruthless, in the most satisfying, untraceable way. I took a deep breath, sipped the lukewarm coffee I had made, and whispered to myself, "Soon, Mom." Very soon. The plan was set, the pieces aligned. Now it was just a matter of waiting for her to step into my trap. 2 days passed before my mom finally called me. Not a "sorry I left you at the airport," not a "are you okay?" Just a clipped, irritated, "why didn't you tell me your flight landed early?" I remember staring at my phone, stunned by how calm she sounded. Like I had inconvenienced her. My fingers tightened around the phone as I realized something important. She genuinely didn't think she'd done anything wrong. And that realization, it flipped a switch inside me. I didn't argue, I didn't accuse. I softened my voice and said, "It's okay, Mom. I figured you were busy." There was a pause, then relief. I could almost hear her ego relaxing. That's when I made my first move. I casually mentioned that I'd met with a financial advisor while I was away. I told her I was reorganizing my future and finally thinking about myself. I didn't mention her debt. I didn't mention the 10 years of payments. I let her imagination do the work. She got quiet. Then she said carefully, "You're not pulling back on helping me, are you?" There it was. The fear, not for me, for her safety net. I smiled and said, "I don't know yet. I'm just weighing my options." From that moment on, her behavior changed. Suddenly she was texting me good morning, asking if I'd eaten, offering to cook dinner. The same woman who couldn't pick me up from the airport was now trying to buy back my loyalty with crumbs of affection. And honestly, watching it happen was almost sad. Almost. That night, I opened my laptop and logged into the shared financial account she didn't even remember I still had access to. I hadn't touched it in years. But there it was, her lifestyle, her comfort, her sense of security, and sitting quietly behind it all was my name. Every major payment, every cleared debt, every bailout, all traced back to me. That's when I discovered the twist she never expected. Legally, the final consolidation loan, the one that wiped out the last of her $2 million debt. It wasn't just in her name, it was in mine. She had begged me to co-sign years ago, promising it was just temporary. And once the debt was cleared, she conveniently forgot. But the paperwork didn't forget, which meant something very important. I didn't just help her. I controlled the entire foundation of her financial stability. I sat there in the dark, the glow of the screen reflecting off my face, my heart pounding. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't emotional. I was calm, focused, surgical. This wasn't about screaming or confrontation. This was about letting her feel what it's like when support quietly disappears. The next morning, I sent her a single message. "Hey, Mom, we need to talk about the loan. Nothing urgent, just important." 3 dots appeared instantly, then disappeared, then appeared again. She replied with one word. "What loan?" I leaned back in my chair, closed my laptop, and laughed for the first time since the airport. "Oh, Mom, you're about to remember everything." She came over that evening. I could tell she was rattled the moment she stepped inside. Her smile was too wide, her movements stiff, like she was walking into a meeting she hadn't prepared for. She kept glancing around my apartment, noticing things she'd never cared about before. The quiet, the independence, the distance. "So," she said, sitting down slowly, folding her hands in her lap. "You wanted to talk?" I didn't rush. I poured myself a glass of water, sat across from her. Let the silence stretch just long enough to make her uncomfortable. "I pulled up the loan paperwork," I said calmly. "The consolidation one." Her face froze. "I don't know why that matters now," she replied quickly. "That was years ago. It's all paid off." "Yes," I said, "by me." She waved her hand dismissively. "We already went over this. You helped. Families help each other." That word helped. Like it was a favor. Like it hadn't cost me my 20s. I slid the folder across the table. She didn't open it right away. She already knew. I co-signed, I continued, which means the account stayed tied to my credit, my liability, my legal authority. "You never refinanced. You never removed me." Her fingers trembled as she flipped through the pages. I watched her eyes skim signatures, dates, totals. Watched the color drain from her face. This doesn't mean you can just..." she started. "I can," I said quietly. "And I already did." Her head snapped up. Did what? I notified the bank that I'm restructuring my financial obligations. Effective immediately. The room felt smaller, heavier. You wouldn't, she whispered. After everything, I laughed softly. Not cruelly, honestly. After everything I did? Her composure cracked. I'm your mother, and I was your lifeline. That's when the excuses started. The tears. The rewriting of history. She talked about how stressed she'd been, how hard life was, how she never meant to hurt me. She even brought up the airport, said she lost track of time and thought I could handle it. That one stung more than I expected. I did handle it, I said. I just won't handle you anymore. She reached across the table, grabbing my hand. Her grip was desperate now. If you do this, she said, voice shaking, you'll ruin me. I gently pulled my hand away. No, I replied. I'm just no longer protecting you from yourself. She left an hour later. Quiet, shattered, smaller than I'd ever seen her. But the real impact hadn't even hit yet. Because what she didn't know, what I hadn't told her, was that the bank review would trigger a full reassessment of her financial standing. Without my backing, without my payments, without my signature propping everything up, her comfort was about to evaporate. As the door closed behind her, my phone buzzed. A notification from the bank. Status update pending. I stared at the screen, heart pounding, not with fear, but with relief. For the first time in 10 years, I wasn't carrying her weight. And tomorrow she'd wake up to the consequences. The next morning, I woke early and checked my email. There it was, the bank notification confirming the account restructure. Her debt was technically paid, but legally, the control had shifted entirely. Every automatic payment she relied on, every buffer she assumed existed, vanished. She had no access without my approval. The power was mine. I didn't gloat immediately. That wasn't necessary. I let her discover it herself. I wanted her to feel that moment of disbelief, that sudden chill when reality hits harder than she could ever imagine. By midday, the first phone calls came. Calls from her creditors, calls from advisors she'd trusted blindly. Confusion, panic. The tiny cracks in her facade she'd relied on to appear untouchable were now gaping canyons. I stayed calm, sipping coffee at my desk, pretending to work. I didn't answer the calls. I didn't send explanations. I let her panic simmer, watched the weight of her negligence settle on her shoulders. Hours later, she called me, finally. The tone in her voice was completely different. No irritation, no arrogance, just fear. And maybe respect. Please, I need to fix this, she said, almost whispering. I thought you didn't need me. I replied, voice quiet but steady. You did, Mom. You always did. But I'm done being your safety net. There was silence. A long, uncomfortable pause. I imagined every moment she replayed in her mind. The airport, every late payment, every sacrifice I'd made for her. And now she was finally feeling it. The consequences of her indifference. You'll help me again? She stammered. No, I said firmly. Not until I feel like I'm not invisible. Not until I know you understand what it's like to rely on someone and treat them like they don't matter. It was the truth, not cruel, not excessive. Just a reflection of everything she had forced me to endure. That night, I sat alone, letting the weight of 10 years lift off my shoulders. For the first time, I felt empowered, free, and in control of my own life. I thought about revenge and realized it wasn't about money or control. It was about balance, teaching her to feel what she had made me feel. The perfect revenge wasn't a shout, a confrontation, or even humiliation. It was silent, inevitable, and deserved. And the best part, she knew. She knew exactly what she had lost, and she knew she had no one to blame but herself. As I poured myself another cup of coffee, I smiled quietly. The storm had passed. The scales were finally even.